There's a game franchise very near and dear to my heart that I can with 100% certainty tell you to not play. Do not get invested in it. Except for two games. There are two games in this series I can tell you are worth playing and being invested in. The rest, keep away. It is not worth your time. And that's Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts. I gotta tell you, I played them so much as a kid. A huge factor of it is that nostalgia factor. The little kid in me just loves all the characters. You know, Sora, Donald, Goofy, Kairi, Riku. It's just, little kid me was such a big fan. And it holds a very dear part of my heart. And like, specifically Kingdom Hearts 2 is the one I played so much when I was a kid. I played the shit out of it. I remember so much about the game. I love it to death. And going back and playing Kingdom Hearts 2, it holds up. It is still a very fun experience. It is a solid game. It has a solid story that I'd say is not overly complicated. Of course, it's still like, if you don't really know much about it, it won't make sense. But, you know, it's not overly complicated. It has, like, a beginning and a conclusion. You know, they kind of set up a sequel, but it's still... The franchise could have ended at Kingdom Hearts 2, and I feel like most fans would have actually been happy with that. And the other game that I'd say is worth playing is Kingdom Hearts 1, where that feels a bit more outdated now. But it's still, you know, the story's there. It's a good time. It's not a bad game. Then you have the rest of the franchise. After Kingdom Hearts 2, things get incredibly complicated incredibly quickly with Birth by Sleep and everything they add in past that. You see, canonically, I think it's like Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts Chains of Memory, and then Kingdom Hearts 2, along with 360 whatever over 2 days or whatever the hell, which I think is actually right before Kingdom Hearts 2. It's kind of like with Chains of Memory or whatever the hell. And then you have Birth by Sleep is like a prequel to the whole thing. But like, it's this big complicated mess of games. You have, let's see if I can name off all the games off the top of my head. Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, 3, Birth by Sleep, Recoded, 360 whatever over 2 days, Birth by Sleep 2, essentially, it's like 1.8 or whatever, 2.8, something like that. Then you've got Chains of Memory, I don't know if I said that one yet. And then you've got Dream Drop Distance, you have Kingdom Hearts Key, or Kai. It's like an X and an I, but you're supposed to pronounce it like Key or Kai or something like that. And that's like a mobile game. And then that's all I can think of right now. But there's so many games, and they all take place at different times. Where the more simple timeline is like you have Kingdom Hearts 1, and then Chains of Memory, and then 2, and then you have Dream Drop Distance, and then 3. And that's just kind of following Sora through his journey. And then you have Birth by Sleep, which is this prequel that takes place way in the past, some like 10, maybe 20 years or whatever. I have no idea how long ago it is. And this is like after the Keyblade War or whatever. And that adds this whole new layer of stuff, because then you have Birth by Sleep 1.8 or whatever the hell, which takes place in between like Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3, and then you have Dream Drop Distance, which bridges 2 and 3, and then you have Chains of Memory, which bridges 1 and 2, but then you have like the quote-unquote spin-off game. There's not really any spin-offs, they're all canon and take place in the series canonically, where it's like the one focused on Roxas and him being in the organization, which bridges the whole story of Roxas with Sora in between Kingdom Hearts 1, Chain of Memories, and 2. And you have like, I don't even know where Kingdom Hearts Key or Kai or whatever the hell it is, where that comes in. That's, I think, even farther in the past. But now the story is like time travel, and you have Heartless and the Unversed or whatever the hell, and like nobodies, and like a nobody is, you get a Heartless and a nobody whenever a Heartless is created or something, where like if somebody becomes a Heartless, then they also get a Nobody, but now no one really knows where like the other ones come from. I don't even remember what their name is. But then I think there's also like another version of these guys which come in like Kingdom Hearts 3 or like some other game, and you have, you know, Dream Drop Distance where you have like a whole nother version of these things, and you have Recoded where there's this data world which is canon, and like that has something, but then you have this character Ventus who is also Roxas, but not Roxas, because Roxas is Sora's Nobody, but he looks exactly like Ventus for some reason, and none of it makes sense. You have Xehanort, but then you have like Xehanort again, and then Xehanort again, and Xehanort again, and like he's time traveling and manipulating all these things, and you have just the same character over and over again. He's young now, he's old here, he's his Nobody. Where's his Heartless at then? I don't know. Then you have like just all these random characters coming in out of nowhere, and none of it makes any sense, because why should it, I guess. And now Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, that disappointment of a game. I'm just happy it exists to begin with. And like the ending for that is like building up for a sequel, but it's not supposed to take place in like the real world. Apparently it might take place in like the afterlife or something. But like none of that makes sense either so far, and it's like more like the real world, as in like real life, where it looks more realistic almost, as opposed to like the Disney and fantasy worlds that we're used to seeing in Kingdom Hearts, where none of it is making any sense anymore. You know, Kingdom Hearts 1, it's like, okay, we have a goal, beat the Heartless, is what it is. Kingdom Hearts 2, it's like, okay, we introduce Nobodies, there's this organization that like kind of controls them and everything, and we get to a conclusion, we beat them. Is what it is. And you know, you can kind of follow Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. You could play those, and it's like, alright, there's some things missing here I don't understand, but you know, it makes sense. You know, if you play Chains of Memory, it's like, oh, now it makes sense what happened to Sora between 1 and 2. That bridges the gap, it all makes sense, but don't ever play that game because it's really tedious and boring and repetitive. It's not even worth the investment. And then, you know, you see Roxas in Kingdom Hearts 2, he's not really explained much, it's just, oh, he's Sora's Nobody, and then he gets his own game, and that kind of bridged the gap of knowledge of where he came from, and what he's been doing in the meantime, and why he's such an important character in Kingdom Hearts 2. And it's like, okay, these 4 games, you know, story-wise, they all kind of make sense. You can keep it sort of contained. There's little bits of maybe there's something else happening, but, you know, it's, you got your main characters, your main bad guys. It all makes sense. And you could actually have, like, a solid beginning, middle, and conclusion throughout the whole thing. But then you start adding everything else. You see, when I was a kid, there's a secret ending in Kingdom Hearts 2 that shows a really beautiful cinematic cutscene for Birth by Sleep, and a common trend with a lot of Kingdom Hearts games, they have very beautiful CGI cutscenes. Gotta give it to them. Those are timeless. They look incredible. But this amazing thing, making it look like, oh, there's gonna be this sequel or prequel or whatever, it's gonna be this really cool, kind of gritty, dark thing about like Keyblade War. And it came out, and like, it's not as cool as I thought it would be. In fact, it was a handheld game, so it had a lot of limitations to it. And that game is also very repetitive and tedious, and it gets really boring after playing through it over and over again, because there's 3 different characters, 3 different stories, but you're going through the same exact areas, fighting the exact same enemies over and over and over and over again. And it gets very boring very quickly. Now, what that game ended up introducing, though, are 3 more protagonists, where you learn they lose this Keyblade War or whatever against Xehanort, our big baddie, but now you look back at Kingdom Hearts 1, the bad guy in that was Xehanort, and in Kingdom Hearts 2, you have Xemnas, but like, Xemnas is supposed to be Xehanort's Nobody, I think that's established by then, and so it's like, okay, so you have Xehanort here, Xemnas, but now we have Xehanort, and it's like years ago, and he's old, and really powerful, and really evil. Okay, and he wins, but, well, you know, it starts to get more confusing now, but then it introduces other character, called Vanitas, I think, and he's like a dark version of Sora, but like in the past, Sora was still just a kid at this point. And there's so many just weird plot points happening now, and like none of it makes sense. The more you get into these games, the less sense it starts to make, because they also kind of start trying to rewrite things. For instance, Kingdom Hearts 1 establishes Sora is so special because he's the Keyblade wielder. He's the one person that wields a Keyblade now. He's the special person. There is no Keyblade War. He's this special guy. And you know, eventually Riku gets it, and it's like, oh, now he's special, and like some of the characters are getting it, they're special, you know, like Mickey's got a Keyblade, that means he's really strong. But then you start getting like Birth by Sleep, where it's, oh, but these people also have Keyblades, but we also established that a shit ton of people also used to use Keyblade, and there's a big war over them. And it's like, okay, so it's really not that special. And then we learn why Sora and Riku and Kairi can use Keyblades is because the three protagonists in Birth by Sleep let them. But then after that, it's like, you know, fast forward to Kingdom Hearts 3, you've got everybody has a Keyblade. Axel uses a Keyblade, you have Riku and Kairi, and you've got Roxas and Ventus and Aqua and Terra and Xehanort, and you have like Vanitas and just all these different characters that can use it. So where it just takes away the mystical nature of the Keyblade. It takes away that sort of like specialness to it. It's no longer that special thing that your protagonist you play as use. It's like, no, just all these people have it. They're all special for whatever reason, even if their stories make no sense. So, yeah. Kingdom Hearts is a franchise I don't recommend people really get into. It's not worth getting into. There is too much there that doesn't make any sense, and the games have just gone down in quality so much. Going from Kingdom Hearts 2 to 3, there's not even any Square Enix characters in 3. The whole thing with Kingdom Hearts was it's supposed to be like Square Enix meets Disney, and they just took out the Square Enix part in Kingdom Hearts 3 and just went entirely focused on Disney, and it's just it's frustrating, you know, seeing this beloved franchise to me just release a sequel that's been long awaited for over a decade, and it's this complete disappointment where it doesn't help the story at all. It actually adds more questions as to why anything's possible, why things exist, and then it opens up this whole new like sequel they're going for, and the franchise is such a mess of a franchise. I would never recommend anybody to start getting into it. Like I said, the most I recommend, play Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. If anything, fuck Kingdom Hearts 1, just play Kingdom Hearts 2 and enjoy it. The gameplay is fun enough for me. I think that's a fun enough, goofy game. And that's what I ranted about. So bye bye.